Hi there, I'm Karen Roby with Greg Nichols of ZDNet. We're talking today about simulators, how they are the unsung tool enabling the autonomous driving revolution, which is really a cool topic to talk about always, Greg. We've seen road testing from companies like Uber and Waymo. So, when it comes to autonomous driving companies, they're also using simulators now more.
Yeah, that's right, Karen. And I had a chance this week to speak with Dr. Sandeep Silvani, who is a director at ANSYS. That's ANSYS. And it's one of the companies that's making those simulator tool sets for autonomous vehicle companies. In particular, ANSYS just signed a deal with BMW to help bring level 3 autonomy to some of their cars by 2021, which is a pretty radical timescale if you think about it. That's just a couple of years away. So the most obvious factors, the most obvious reasons that companies are using these simulators, according to Dr. Savani, is that speed and that the cost savings associated with them. So there's this figure that's thrown around, and it's kind of a crazy figure. In the autonomous vehicle community, they consider 8 billion road miles kind of the standard, 8 billion failure-free road miles to thoroughly validate the safety of an autonomous vehicle. And Dr. Savani's point to me is that it would take hundreds of years, literally centuries, to accomplish that. And now, obviously, we can't wait hundreds of years for autonomous vehicles to come online, nor can any company incur that kind of cost. So simulation helps speed up development by putting autonomous vehicles on the road virtually, by putting them through the ringer in virtual miles.
Yeah, when you talk about the simulators, Greg, I think what comes to mind, at least for me, it does, as pilots use the simulators, of course, for the airline companies and things like that. So is this similar in terms of what the simulator is like?
Yeah, and the first generation of these simulators definitely had more in common with the flight simulators you might be used to. In fact, those are simulators that are actually using gaming engines and even have this kind of video game look. The graphics would feel really familiar to you if you saw them. A company like ANSYS takes a slightly different approach. They use high fidelity physics simulation. And so in that scenario, vehicle makers can really test all of their sensors using just a variety of different physics scenarios. They can do like electromagnetic testing and electronic testing and mechanical testing, and they can test all of their optical systems within this simulation toolkit.
Okay, when it comes to this, obviously, as with anything, safety is paramount. That's what's always at the top of the list in terms of priorities here. So how are the simulators helping in that way?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. Obviously, safety is the most important factor here when we're talking about autonomous driving. So there's a few issues. One is safety during the testing itself, that development phase where they're trying to work the kinks out of these cars. As we all know, one of Uber's autonomous vehicles famously killed a pedestrian in Arizona during testing. So in the immediate sense, Dr. Savani's point to me is that simulations can help take some of the strain off of road testings so that those accidents happen in the virtual world as opposed to in the real world. And that obviously is a very good thing. Dr. Savani also brought up what are called corner cases. And these are situations that they occur in the real world, but they're very, very rare. Even across thousands of miles of road testing, you might not encounter some of these situations. And he brought up a specific example to me, and his situation was this. The sun is shining at a particularly tough angle for a car's camera, and at the same time, a pedestrian is crossing the street wearing light-colored clothes, and all of this is happening while there's a big white semi-truck trailer parked kind of obscuring the camera's view in a certain way. And that's obviously a rare situation, but it does arise. There was a Tesla accident, of course, that killed a driver in autopilot mode under somewhat similar conditions involving one of those white trailers. So even though that's a very specific situation, if you're using a simulator, you can uncover that situation. A simulator working correctly is going to generate the variables necessary to kind of sniff out those unusual situations. And then the team can test around it, and the engineering team can go in and make the necessary changes to accommodate that situation. So yeah, safety is paramount, and simulators are definitely helping.
Good. And it sounds like road tests, will they become a thing of the past or still be used in conjunction with the simulators?
Yeah, they're going to be around for sure. Simulators are made by human beings. They're made by engineers. So there are definitely blind spots in the software. And for that reason, simulation is never going to replace physical testing. Instead, it's meant to amplify it. So, to your question, physical testing can uncover, in much the same way that simulators can uncover situations that just wouldn't occur in thousands of miles of road testing. The real world, through physical testing, the real world has this ability to throw all of these curveballs at engineers that they wouldn't have come up with otherwise. The real world is just really good at generating unexpected situations. So when that happens, simulation can perform a large number of tests around those situations that are uncovered in the real world. So if you apply that to kind of how it actually works with autonomous vehicle companies, they're typically running a fleet of road vehicles, like continuously, 24 hours a day. And those vehicles are bringing back tons and tons and tons of data. So a company like Ansys can come in and sift through that data and really identify those corner cases after the fact, and then make simulation models of those cases for further testing. One example is a corner case where a pedestrian is going to walk in front of a car. And again, they're wearing light-colored clothes, which seem to be a particular problem for autonomous vehicles in certain lighting conditions. And maybe there's snow behind the pedestrian. In a road testing scenario, an autonomous vehicle company might see that in that case, a human driver had to take over. So Ansys can then go in after the fact and model that out in a more robust way to kind of sniff out all the scenarios and see how the vehicle tests and see how the vehicle reacts in those scenarios. So in that way, they're very much complementary. And to sum all of that up, they're definitely not replacing road testing. They are, though, speeding up development in a really significant way. And they are increasing safety when properly used. And as Dr. Savani pointed out to me, safety really is the measure of quality in autonomous driving.
Yeah, most certainly, because I'm sure, they may think they know every scenario, but there's always something that comes out of left field that you think, oh, well, that's possible. It could happen.
Most definitely. Absolutely.
All right, it's a fascinating topic, Greg. It really is. And for more on Greg's article, make sure you check out ZDNet.